Hi, I'm Dave Eastman, Senior VP of In-Command Services. This session highlights the basic design and features of In-Command's port list. After watching this video, there is an advanced port list training video that picks up where this video ends. In-Command's port list is designed to track every network port, be it switch or patch panel in a data center. The data maintained on each port includes the port status, whether it's in use, available, reserved, etc. It includes port characteristics like is it a copper port or a fiber or a coax port. And it includes port chains, tracking port connections from a switch all the way to an end device and more. The port list menu is accessible under the Data Center Views menu and also under the Add Change Infrastructure menu. Under the Data Center Views menu, it's presented in a read-only mode. Today's demo will access the port list via the Add Change Infrastructure menu. Let's go ahead and get started. Selecting the site is always the first thing we have to do. So we select our site from the drop-down list of sites. And then we can go to the menu structure, in this case, Add Change Infrastructure, Port Management, and Port List to display our port list. In order to better use the real estate, I'm going to hide now the site selection menu so the entire screen can be viewed for the port list. First, let me explain the purpose of each column on this page, and then I'll talk about the purpose of the buttons and the icons. Let me start by reminding you of the documentation on this page of each blue question mark. When you click on the blue question mark, it actually now describes much of what I'm about to tell you. So I won't go through this page. I'm going to talk through it, but I want to remind you that it's there. Okay, the first column, the port ID. This is a unique identifier, system assigned, so there's very little you can do with this, but it uniquely identifies every port. The next column is the port name. This is also a system assigned name, and it concatenates the device name plus the module plus the cassette plus the port number. And this way, every port will be consistently named throughout your entire data center. The third column is the front port connected to column. All ports have front connections, but only patch panels have both a front and a back connection. If the front port is open, that is, it's not cabled to any other port or device, then the Patch To button is available. And clicking on the Patch To button will present a form that allows you to fill it in and make a new cable connection. If the port is connected to another port, then that other port will be listed here, the port name of that port. A third option is that the port is connected to a cable, but that cable is run to a rack and hanging free in the rack. In that case, the site, room, and rack where the cable end is hanging is displayed with white text on a light blue background as I'm pointing at here. The next column is the front cable label. This is also a system assigned label. It's TIA compliant labeling consisting of the name of the port on side A with a bidirectional arrow and the name of the port on side B. Now, in this case, the port on side A is device 01A, module 3, cassette 1, port strands 7 and 8, and it's connected to device A01 3650 and port 8. Now, TIA also suggests that you perhaps can prefix each port name with things like site, room, rack, and RU. You can do this live when you want to. I could prefix site in front of each port name. I can prefix room. I can prefix the rack, and I can even prefix the rack RU. It makes for a very long cable label. I'll adjust my columns here so you can see the entire label. But with that, I now know that this first port is connected. It's at the in-command site, demo cage, rack A02, RU28, device 01A, module 3, cassette 1, strands 7 and 8, and that's connected to another port at the in-command demo site, demo cage, rack A01, RU42, device A01 3650, and port 8. So you have great flexibility here on how the cables and the cable connections are labeled. And it's system assigned, so all of your cables will be consistently labeled with the parameters that make sense to you at your site. Next is the alt front cable label column. In the case where a client has labeled a cable using a different labeling convention, that label can be displayed in this column. Next is the back port connected to column. This displays, in the case of a patch panel, where the back port on that patch panel is sourced. And the connection to that back port is a port label displayed in this column. Next, if the port is sourced from a module on the main device, the module name shows here. Next, cassette. If the port is sourced from a cassette on a module on the main device, that cassette number or name is defined and indicated here. The next three columns are site name, room name, and rack label. Let me scroll to the right to bring more columns into view. The site name, room name, and rack label describe where the device is located from which the port is sourced. In this case, this port is located at the in-command site, demo cage 1 in rack A02. After that is the device ID. The device ID is a unique identifier, system assigned, that uniquely defines each device. The device name or host name is the more common name that you will use to describe a device. And that's located here in the device name column. The device name is hyperlinked to show more details about any given device. For example, if this device name A01 patch panel 24 port, if I were to click on that hyperlink, it will open up a detail on that device, telling me where the device is located, when it was installed, does it have a serial number, etc. And it will tell me if it's connected to any power circuits. And in this case, since it's a patch panel, It's showing me all 24 ports, or in this case, all 36 ports, and what the status of each port is. All right. After the device name is a device abbreviation. That's really a device abbreviated name. This is an optional field, but is used when the device name is fairly long and we want to use an abbreviation when we're labeling the port. For example, this port name is labeled device 01A. You'll notice it's taking the device abbreviation and using it in the port name rather than this long device name. This is just a feature allowing you to make better use of your automatically created port names. After the device abbreviation is a device config description, another system generated column. In the device config description is the manufacturer, the model, and the RU height of each device. In this case, it's a Panduit patch panel 1U RU height. After device configuration is a device category. There are three options for this field: switch, patch panel, or common device. All ports are associated with one of these device categories, and this field can be used for filtering on this page. For example, right now I'm filtering for all the patch panel ports. If I wanted to filter for only switch ports, I simply change to switch ports, or only for ports on common devices, I can change and filter for common devices. I'll go back and look at just patch panels to stay consistent. After the device category is the company column. This names what company owns this port. This is important because this application is a multi-tenant, multi-site application. Whoever owns the port is listed here. Now, when you're looking at this, you will generally see only your company here. The next few columns have to do with an ITSM ticketing system. We call it a request ID, but it could be a ticket ID. This is an optional field that can be populated if the port creation was created based on a request from the company's ITSM system. If the port was created thus, the request ID could be located here. Let me scroll further to the right. After the request ID would be the request created date. This is the date that the request was created. The next column, the requester. This is who requested the port to be created. And finally, the requesting company. What company requested this report? These are optional fields that are seldomly used, but can be important if we're linking this to ITSM tickets. The next port is the status column for the port. Is the port, there are various statuses. Is the port available? Perhaps the port has been identified as bad and we want to take it out of use. Maybe it's a cross-connect port. Maybe it's in use servicing a end device or other standard statuses. The status of every port is labeled here. The next column is a notes column. It's an optional field that is used to record additional information about a port that is not already captured in one of the standard columns. Next, the front cable type. What kind of cable is connected to this port? Front cable type could be single mode fiber, multi-mode fiber, copper, OM3, 4, 5, etc. Next is the back port site 2. This is the room where the back port is routed to, only populated on patch panels. Back port room. What room is the back port connected to? Back port rack 2. What rack is the back port connected to? The final column here is a chain ID. This is a system assigned ID assigned to every port in a given port chain. Filtering by this column will show all the ports in a given port chain. For example, if I wanted to filter for 3797, I can see there are no ports in this chain. But if there were, there would be multiple ports that would have shown up. The final items on this page to discuss are the icons and the buttons. These will be discussed in further detail in the advanced training video, but let me mention them now to give you a sense. The first item is the icon here, the port chain. If a port is part of a chain, you can click on the port chain button and see a list of all the ports connected in a chain and how they're connected. After the port chain is a port update or edit button. When you click on the edit button, you can edit the port. Any of the non-gray fields can be changed, such like module or cassette, company status, connector type, etc. And on this port edit, you can also make front connections and back connections. The third icon here is a trash icon. The trash icon will allow you to delete a port, but only if there are no other ports connected to the ports. For example, you'll see that these icons are grayed out. I can't delete them because there are other ports connected. The final button on this page is the new button, and this is what is used to actually create new ports, either a single port or ports in batch. Clicking on the new button opens up a form that will allow you to identify the device that the port is sourced from and further details. Again, I'll discuss this in detail in the next training video, Advanced Port List Training. That concludes this session. Thank you for listening and thank you for using InCommand.